This is TWiT. We are here to talk about Microsoft and Windows. And here we are, post-build. I like,
I know I'm hungover.
Yeah.
In the midst
I spent
of one
a lot
of
of the weekend looking at videos, session videos.
Oh, catching up, yeah. In the midst of these, I think sometimes it's a little hard to assess what we're seeing, but I always like to do a post-mortem. That's probably a bad way to put it. It's not dead yet.
Yeah. A triage. If you will.
Somebody said, don't call it a post-mortem, call it an after-action report.
There you go.
What's the after-action report on build?
Yeah, I've been interested to see people's different reactions. Richard last week, I think, referred to it as one of the best builds in memory, right?
Best keynote.
Best keynote, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's as a conference maker, of course, I have concerns about conferences at all times, but
sure.
For me, it is very unusual to have a single theme keynote come out of Microsoft. That's odd for a company that makes hundreds of products to clearly align everything with theme. And some of the product teams I know were pushed out of the keynote entirely and said, like, you not only are not in the keynote, you can't talk about your stuff this week. You have to wait till build is over.
Yeah, actually, there was going to be a session about the Windows 11 Explorer redo and all the tech that was going on with that, and they quietly dropped right off.
Pushed it all back.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I would also say the least on-time keynotes I've ever seen.
What the heck was that?
Yeah, so strange.
Crazy.
They actually threw me day 2 because they were a little late on day 1. And so I came in at my leisure, and there's Paul sitting there, and there's Satya going, or I guess it wasn't Satya, it was
Panos.
Jha.
No, before Panos, the Raja Shah.
Raja Shah. Raja. He has beautiful hair too, by the way. And
he does.
And I thought,
that's good because you can't hear anything he's saying. Just stare at his hair.
Yeah. I like day 2 better than day 1. I thought both were very good. I agree. It was a little weird. We kind of thought this, and maybe now I'd like to know if you consider it the case that Panos kind of got the rug pulled out from under him.
He did.
Is that confirmed? You've confirmed it. Okay.
Yeah, 2 different people. Based on what I was talking about last week, contacted me. I didn't reach out to anybody. 2 different people from Microsoft contacted me about that.
And they said essentially that he was going to do some of the stuff that ended up going into day 1, and as a result had very little to say in day 2. Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But did he not know it was coming? Like, why would he just compress his piece?
Yeah, it happened last minute. And how bad would it look if this guy's was on the schedule to do this thing and then did almost nothing, right? I mean, it would have, I give him some credit for going out gamely and just doing it, I guess. But as we noted at the time, not great.
No. But it's not a thing to wing.
No, I know. Jeez. I really like the amount of Windows content at the show. I like that they talked about Windows broadly. There's some stuff coming soon. There's some stuff coming later this year. And then to Richard's point about the all-in on AI thing, I mean, I don't think I've seen Microsoft line up like this since the internet tidal wave or whatever.
Yeah, basically.
You've awoken a sleeping giant.
And can we give kudos to Steven Bathiche?
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
His 10 minutes are the best 10 minutes of both days.
I think that was his coming out party for a lot of people who didn't know who he was or still maybe don't know who he is.
I always knew him as Panos' demo monkey, for God's sake.
Well, he was he's Hinge Boy, right? The the guy that makes all the hardware, right? Here, I'll give you a story. So I'll condense this down, but we were at a Surface event, 5 years ago or something. Oh no, I know exactly what it was. It was when they came up with the Surface Book, and Surface Book is has that giant kind of teardrop hole in it, and they talked about how this, whatever. And I said, well, aren't you concerned about stuff falling in there and whatever? So I got him. I pulled it. I saw him at the event. I pulled him over. I said, hey, Stevie. I said, come on. Clearly, you intend to close the gap on this thing eventually. Like you're acting like this is the design, like you wanted, but really this is the first iteration toward this thing. And he goes, oh. Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously, and then this woman comes over. She's like, "All right, Stevie, that's enough of that." She's just pulling this up. And it's like every once in a while, you just get like a straightforward answer out of someone's mouth, and then they pull them away.
They pull them in.
Yeah,
that'll
totally
enough of
that.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Hinge Boy Stevie.
But he's great.
But and incidentally, obviously, Microsoft has put these on their site, and we have. If you go to twit.tv/news. our coverage of both day one and day two. And yeah, if you only had maybe 20 minutes, watch that very end piece on day two that Steven Bathiche lays out the vision for AI, right?
Yes. So 2 days of keynotes, 3 hours of keynotes probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy that virtually no one has heard of or knows, at the very end gave a 20-minute, maybe 15-minute talk and completely encapsulated how they're going to roll out AI across the stack.
Like if you ever wondered why folks are called technical fellow at Microsoft, because every single TF I've ever worked with can do that thing. Why they've never let him do that before on stage, I can't imagine.
And he did to AI what I just described with Surface Book, which was he's like, here we are now, and this is not the end. Normally when you release a product, you're like, look, let's just focus on this, right? This is what we're doing. We're not talking about the future. But he was like, no, this is step 1 of 3. And
here's the path.
Thank you for that. And that's, honestly, I think a developer show, Build in particular, that's really what it's about, right? It's about the future.
And it's the confidence. Like, I wish that was part of day one, for the confidence to the press to say, we're not winging this. We have a plan.
That's right.
Now, we know they're winging it. Like, that's a different thing, but they've made a plan.
No, but you look right. That's right.
It's like you have a roadmap, but you don't plan which hotels you're going to stay in every night. So it's a little both, right?
Right.
And there's no, and to be clear, like, there's no real way to know how this is going to emerge. What excited me about the whole thing overall was Microsoft doing their actual playbook, which is we build ecosystems. That's right. We're excited to see what you're going to do with this ecosystem, where you're going to take it. We're going to be here to facilitate all of that. And I don't know, we haven't had a message that clear in a while like that.
Well, it goes to your Bill Gates quote about the definition of a platform. Right. I mean,
that's, but that was Satya, wasn't it? Who was it that pulled that out of the hat? It was day one.
Was it Satya said?
I think it was Satya. And it was maybe it was the guy after Satya, but it was interesting because it's an old quote, but it really set the table for saying
that's who we are.
We're a platform company. Yeah,
this is what we do exactly.
And I love that. I mean, that's what they're best at.
Yeah. Yep. It's important because there's been a lot of wobble from here from time and again or whatever, where they kind of look like they're going to stop doing that, right? When they do something like Office 365 that becomes Microsoft 365, you can kind of view it as, well, they're cutting out some partners here. This used to be something that partners did, and you get this, like, are they doing an Apple thing? Are they slowly getting rid of this partnering ecosystem or whatever? But then they come out with something like this and you realize, like, no, this is what we do. We're not keeping it all for ourselves. We're not trying to go it alone. We're going to be a partner to you, and we're going to give you the technology you need to succeed. Yada yada yada. I mean, it's
and I would argue it's the first truly Azure centric ecosystem play they've made. Yeah. They've moved a bunch of other existing platform pieces into the cloud, and often you have choices as to where you're going to run them and so forth. But the only way you get GPT-4 is to run it off of Azure. Like, that's reality. And so here it is. They finally have a product utterly dependent on Azure that has compelling in an ecosystem.
Right.
So they didn't say Windows 12. I know Paul had that on his bingo card.
Yeah, and he put it right in the middle too, so there was a whole lot of bingos.
But win a single round.
But I mean, so Satya at the beginning said 50 plus. We got 50 plus AI announcements this week at Build. Right. I'm going to give you 5, and one of them was Windows CoPilot. I mean, he did say that. I mean, I guess that's what Windows 12 would be.
Well, no. So actually, if you going back to the Steven Bathiche thing, CoPilot is Windows 11 because it's a thing on the side.
It's still a sidebar.
Right. Windows 12 is where it becomes more fully integrated, and is that middle piece where it's, what is it, beside, inside,
side.
Or something? Yeah.
I have actually. I wrote down because I thought it was so good. I actually took notes on Steve and Stevie, I guess you call him. And I don't know him that well, but I call him Steve. But I will summarize, if you wish.
Please.
The flow. Let's see. So this is that was Kevin Scott. Oh, maybe I'm still on day one. Let's go back.
Day one.
Yeah. Let's go back in.
Like Kevin Scott, Yusuf Mehdi. He's in there somewhere.
Yusuf Mehdi, Kevin Scott, and then Goo.
That's all day one. That was the end of day one.
Okay. Oh yeah, day 2 comes after day 1, doesn't it? There
Weird.
you go. There you go. Steven Bathiche, technical fellow, Microsoft's Applied Sciences Group. Actually, put this up on the screen. AI is the new interaction technology. And that's kind of one of the things they've been saying is...
Leo, I'm sorry to interrupt. What is this thing we're looking at?
This is my note taking.
What is this not Notion?
Well, Notion is not great for, like fast note taking. So I use LogSeq or LogSeq, LOGSEQ. AI is the new interaction technology, less programmatic, more piloted. So this is the 3 stages, he says, of AI. Beside, which is that sidebar, the helper alongside your app. It's your first AI experience, and it's minimally disruptive. I'm sorry, the text is so small, I can't make it bigger. Inside is the next stage, and this is what you're talking about. This is Windows 12.
I'm just extrapolating.
AI is the main scaffolding of the app. And he says it. So remember, again, I think it was on day 1, they showed Douglas Engelbart's Mother of All Demos, where we first saw the mouse, right? And the connection of the pointer on the screen to your hand moving. And really, ever since GUIs, all programs have had a main loop that is, what's the mouse doing? What's the keyboard doing? What's the mouse doing? What's the keyboard doing?
It's literally a video game.
They call it the event loop. They call it the event loop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He says the new loop, the main input loop, is going to be the AI loop, less dependent on point and click, fewer toolbars, fewer deep menus. Can't hate that, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that in a bit. But
and then finally, outside, where and this is a little scary. This is what all the Sam Altman and everybody just wrote that note. Extinction event.
Skynet. Yeah,
it's AI executes globally. In other words, it's no longer trapped inside an app or inside Windows, but it is executing everywhere, orchestrating multiple apps, acting as your agent. Mm-hmm. It's Jarvis. It's Bing Orchestrator, he calls it, or Windows Shell is an orchestrator.
It said in the end what it is just a set of ruled APIs that these agents can access.
Right.
Now, if one of them happens to be the nuclear codes, okay, that's on you. Like, I wouldn't publish that API. It's just me, but I'm saying.
Yeah, don't, please.
What they're talking about is exposing APIs. Right?
I made a note, the final thing he said, which I thought really is the kind of overarching point, which is use AI to reach your customers' goals, not their tasks. Don't focus on getting a task done. Go a step higher and say, what are you trying to do?
This is a message for developers, you're saying.
Yeah.
In other words,
what are you trying to do? And let me help you do that, not individual tasks. It's going to take some getting used to. Wasn't that clippy?
The one thing he talked about in the middle part of that was this notion that UIs would get simpler because AI was there to get it done. And that was and that's why I said let's just hold off on that part because it's a little complicated. Like today we don't have AI in Windows. So Microsoft goes through a process in Windows 11 where they simplify the user interface, which is valuable and useful. But we've got that one, every person has that one thing they need and it's not there anymore and everyone complains kind of problem, right? And so we all know the stories about the taskbar and everything. But I think the goal here would be that UIs can be simpler because we just don't need those controls anymore because it will just be something that is done for us more seamlessly, whatever that thing is, right? So, we went from toolbars and menus to ribbons in Office, and we went from, this traditional desktop UI to a traditional desktop UI in Windows, but one that is, simpler, I guess. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. We in the Microsoft community have kind of suffered from don't take my feature away, don't move my feature to a new location. We hate that too.
Well, and Microsoft, especially the Windows team, has been consistently punished every time they try.
Yeah. And the earliest thing that they tried along these lines, well, not the earliest,
was Bob,
the most recent thing.
Right?
Sorry, I was going to say not the earliest. Sorry. Remember they were going to do this Windows 10X thing. And of course, that UI is what they eventually brought into Windows 11. A key component of Windows 10X, which is a completely different kind of simplification, was Win32 isolation.
Right.
This notion that, we're going to make the system more reliable as well when we do this. And that kind of fell apart. But I don't know if anyone noticed this. There's a feature coming in the next version of Windows 11 called Win32 isolation. right? And it's not the same thing. It technically, they're not using containers. That's not what it is. But I always said about that feature, to me, that was just as exciting, if not more so than the UI, that if they could get this thing to work, this is how we bring Windows into the 21st century, basically,
Do you think they're going to invert it now that for me as an admin, I can apply isolation per app rather than them saying everything is isolated, try and undo it?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the logical thing to do.
Yes. And it, without knowing if there's someone like Mark Vazanovich who does this to me a lot, will say, Paul, those two things have nothing to do with each other. But then I would read the high level explanation both. I'll say, I hear you, but they sound exactly the same to me. So as long as it accomplishes the same goal, I always thought that was a great idea. And what I mean by that is not the exact implementation using containers, but rather this notion of isolating these things from each other and making Win32 apps safe and eliminating that problem.
Just being able to limit the ability for any given piece of code to call to other pieces of code.
Yeah.
You need a manifest.
A lot of times it's not malicious. It's just stupid, right? Poorly written. But then again, those APIs are terrible. So it's no one's fault. Sometimes it's malicious, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's going to, there's no question this is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And that I think no question that Microsoft's tried it before and failed.
Yeah. But Leo, we do these things not because they're easy. We do them because they are hard.
No. We do them because we thought they were going to be easy.
Yep. Well, we tend to make ourselves look better than we are. So
it's interesting. It's really interesting. But at least of all the speakers, he was the most very clear in the vision and the roadmap. And I think it was a really excellent presentation. Yeah. And an exhortation to developers to do it this way, right?
Right. I think,
and to see that there's a roadmap for it. It's like you're not going to be done with just this one little thing. There's going to be more stages to it. And really, what he's making a commitment to Microsoft is we're going to expose more interfaces, ways for you to integrate, and for it to be, to integrate in your applications and be more effective. And you're not going to be responsible for trying to build all those hooks. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Right. I can't wait to see what this looks like.
This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. Your IT skills are outdated in about 18 months. Stay ahead of the curve and strengthen your IT expertise with affordable certification-based learning that will launch or advance your career. Individuals use the code TWiT30 for 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership at go.acilearning.com/twit.